Okay, in this video we're going to write linear equations given 1 point in the slope or given 2 points. I'm going to write it in multiple forms, okay? So here's our first problem. It says the table represents some points on the graph of a linear function, so they tell us it's linear, and we've got all these points, and so which function represents this relationship, okay? So there's several ways of solving this. The first strategy I would say is I could take my input values, substitute them in for x, and see if I get my output values. Like for example, if I took negative 7.5, substituted for x, and worked all this out, and my answer was 12, that's good. Now we go on to my next point. I'd substitute negative 3.5 in for x, work it out, and see if I get 0 as my answer. And I'd do that for all the points and see if all those points work for this equation, then you know that's your equation, okay? And so that's a good way, but that's not the way I'm going to show in this video. Here's how I'm going to show it. I'm going to say, okay, well, each of these equations, they all have a slope and a y-intercept, right? A slope and a y-intercept, a slope and a y-intercept, a slope and a y-intercept. So if I can just calculate the slope and the y-intercept of this table to see which one matches this. So in order to calculate the slope from the table, I'm going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so that's going to be y2 minus y1 over over x2 minus x1, okay? Don't forget that negative sign right there because you're doing x2 minus x1, so that's minus a negative. So if we simplify here, my numerator, 0 minus 12 is negative 12. In my denominator, if I'm subtracting a negative, that means I'm really adding a positive. And so I believe that would give us a 4 in our denominator, and this would simplify to negative 3, okay? We really have one answer choice with negative 3, but let's say we had a couple. Let's pretend there was a couple of answer choices with negative 3 and we had to also calculate the y-intercept. Here's how you would do that. I know that a linear function takes the form of y equals mx plus b. We've just calculated our m to be negative 3. So what I can do now is I can just pick a point. Let's just pick a point. I'll go with that one. And let's substitute it in for x and y. So I'm saying my y would be 0. My slope is 3. My x value is negative 3.5. And then my b value. I'm just going to solve this little equation for b. B is my only variable left, and that's my y-intercept. So if I multiply negative 3 times negative 3.5, that becomes 10.5, I believe. And then I just got my one little last step of subtracting 10.5 from each side of the equation. And I get that b is negative 10.5. So we have our slope is negative 3. Our y-intercept is negative 10.5. That would be why A is going to be your answer. So we talked about two ways of solving this, but I always want you to know even more. Let's keep going with it. I've got one more strategy that I want to show. And so let me pull over my calculator here. We know these are, these points are linear. So if I put them into my table, we should be able to do a linear regression. So I'm going to go over here to my stat button here. So I'm going to go stat, and then I'm going to hit enter on edit. And I'm going to put in all of my x coordinates in for L1, and I'm going to put all my y coordinates in for L2. So I'm just going to do this real quick. We got negative 7.5. And actually, I'm going to pause the video while I type all these in because I don't want you to waste your time. Okay, so I typed all these points. I got all my x values typed in for L1, all my y values in for L2. And so now I'm going to go back to my stat menu. Okay, so I go to stat, but this time I'm going to go over to calc, and I'm going to go down to the fourth option, which is linear regression. That's this process of finding the equation. And I just hit enter. They tell us that my slope here is a negative 3. And my y-intercept is a negative 10. Boom, that's another way we could have gotten A as our answer. All right, enough of that question. Let's move on. Which equation describes the line with an x-intercept of 5 and a y-intercept of 3? I like this question. Okay, first strategy I'm going to use for it, let's use a graph to find the equation. If I know my x-intercept is 5 and my y-intercept is 3, we already have enough information to write an equation. If my y-intercept is 3, I've already got it down to those 3 answer choices because that first answer choice does not have the appropriate y-intercept. And then I just got to figure out my slope. My slope is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my slope would be a negative 3 over 5. You got to be careful there because since this is going down and to the right, it's going to be a negative slope. That's why I make sure and choose answer choice C. Okay. Now, do one more strategy real quickly. So let's pretend, I'm going to keep answer C circled. Let's pretend like we don't know it. If I have an x-intercept of 5 and a y-intercept of 3, we should be able to write the equation from those two given points. As long as I know that those are these as ordered pairs, we can find the equation. So let's go y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And my numerator becomes 3, my denominator becomes negative 5. That's enough information in itself to choose the correct answer because there's only one answer choice that has a slope of negative 3/5. But then if I wanted to keep going, we know our equation is going to take the form of y equals mx plus b. We know our slope is 3/5. They give us in the problem that the y-intercept is 3. So that's another way you could have done it. Shoot, you could have even just taken these 2 points and put them in your calculator and do a linear regression like I did on the last problem. There's so many ways of solving these. Let's move on. What is the equation that has a slope of 0 and passes through this point? Now, here's what I want us to remember. Slope of 0, that's one of our exceptions. So we've got our little acronym here. And so here's what this little acronym means. It means that vertical lines have undefined slope, and their equations are x equals a number, like for example, like x equals 2 would be one of these vertical lines with undefined slope. And then we have horizontal lines. When you're graphing those have 0 slope, and their equations are y equals a number, like y equals 5 would be a vertical line. So what I've got here is we're trying to find the line with a slope of 0, okay, and pass through this point. Well, first off, we know it's a slope of 0. We know it's a horizontal line. So we have a point that is a horizontal line and passes through the point 6, negative 8. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That point would be right there, and we're really writing the equation of this line, okay? So we know it's a horizontal line, so we know the equation is going to be y equals something. So I'm already down to answer choices G and answer choices J. Because answer choice F is a vertical line, answer choice H is a vertical line. So now we're down to these. And so the question is which is it? And so what we've got here is you got to think about this line right here. We have the ordered pair 6, 8, or negative 8, excuse me. Every point on this line has something in common. Like, for example, this could be the point like 4, negative 8, 2, negative 8. Excuse me, negative 4, negative 8, negative 2, negative 8, 2, negative 8, 3, negative 8, 5, negative 8, negative 10, negative 8. Basically, they all have that y coordinate of negative 8, and so that's kind of the way to remember it. Since it's y equals on this horizontal line, to write our equation, we're going to use the y coordinate, okay? Because no matter what x is, the y coordinate is going to be negative 8. Okay, we have one last question. What is the equation in standard form of the line that passes through the point 124 and has a slope of negative 0.6? And they give us all these equations. Well, this is interesting, okay? We could do this any of a number of ways, but my first way is I think, okay, let's put all these into slope-intercept form to see which ones have that slope of negative 0.6. And so I'm not going to do it for all these, but I just want to show us some reasoning here. If I subtract 3x from each side, I have this. And then if I divide by 5 on each side, I have this. What is that, 25? Good. So notice this one has the slope of negative 0.6 we want, because negative 3/5 as a decimal is negative 0.6. But the thing is it safe to assume that all of these are going to have, like there might not be another line with that slope? So let's think about this. The reason we got that negative 0.6 slope is because we subtracted 3x and then divided by 5. The negative 3 over 5 gave us that slope. But look at this. Wouldn't we have to subtract 3x here and then divide by 5? when we have to subtract 3x here and then divide. Notice these all have the same setup. These are actually all going to have a slope of negative 0.6, so that doesn't help us at all, okay? And I'm not going through every step, but if you didn't believe me, and you have time to do this on your test, take each of these and convert it into slope-intercept form, and you see they all have the same slope. They just have different y-intercepts. This number is going to be different for all of them. So the fact that it has a slope of negative 0.6 is irrelevant to us. We just got to find the line that passes through this point, because only one line is going to pass through that point. So if I clear everything off, let's just find which one goes to that point. So if I have 3x plus 5y equals 125, we're trying to find out if it passes through the point where x is 1, but y is 24. Let's see. 3 times 1 is 3. That's easy. 5 times 24 is 120. Oops, I don't know why I have an equal sign there. Now we end up with the statement 123 equals 125. Since that is not a true statement, we know that this point is not on this line. But hopefully I'm looking right here and I'm seeing, oh, okay. If I look at answer choice H, I know that if I substitute my x coordinate of 1 in for x, and if I substitute my y coordinate of 24 in for y, we can simplify. I get 3 plus 1, using this answer choice. 3 plus 120 equals 123. That is a true statement, okay? So I like answer choice H because we get a true statement, we know that this point is on this line. And also, if I were to take this and solve it for y and put it in slope-intercept form, it would get that same slope that this question asked for. So answer choice H is going to be our answer here.